Well, President Trump is back in the White House, returning this afternoon from a weekend at Mar-a-Lago and a campaign rally just up the coast in Melbourne. Campaign rally is exactly what spokesman Sean Spicer called it, and it resembled in all ways but one the kind of airport hangar appearances he made all last year during the campaign. The difference wasn't his private 757 in the background, but Air Force One. Now, as you might imagine, some of what he said at the rally about refugees made headlines both here and overseas.
Here's the bottom line. We've got to keep our country safe. You look at what's happening. We've got to keep our country safe. You look at what's happening in Germany. You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden. They took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible.
Now, as for what happened that night in Sweden, nothing significant actually happened that night in Sweden. President Trump took to Twitter Sunday and today to explain what he was actually referring to. Swedes certainly reacted as well. And on a more serious note, the work of drafting a new travel ban has picked up steam. Lots to talk about. Sarah Murray joins us now with all of that. So what is the latest from the White House and from Swedish officials on the president's remarks about Sweden? Because that's gotten a lot of coverage over the last couple of days.
Well, Anderson, Swedish officials were initially confused and trying to figure out what the president could possibly be referring to. He took to Twitter to explain that his comments came after he saw a segment on Fox News that apparently pertained to asylum seekers that were going to Sweden. Now, the Swedish embassy also shot back on Twitter, essentially saying they look forward to informing the U.S. administration about their immigration and integration policies.
And the new executive order on immigration and travel, it's expected, what, sometime this week? Do we know a lot of the details yet?
We are expecting it to be later on this week. And remember, the administration is trying to craft a new executive order that they believe the courts will uphold. Their current order has been blocked from implementation by the courts. So they're going to try to address a couple things. Some things we expect to stay the same. For instance, we expect it will still deal with those 7 majority Muslim countries. Those same 7 countries are likely to be affected. But a senior administration official wouldn't comment on whether we would once again see this indefinite ban on Syrian refugees. The other thing they're going to do is they're going to make it clear that this is not something that's going to apply to green card holders. That was a big issue with the first ban. And they're going to try to give better guidance about how this would impact people who have current or pending visas, which was another issue that they faced in the courts. So we should see later on this week what sort of the contours of this look like and whether it can uphold challenges by the courts.
All right, Sarah Murray. Sarah, thanks very much. Back with the panel. Joining us is also Trump supporter and contributor to The Hill, Kayleigh McEnany, also Democratic strategist and host of the Working Life podcast, Jonathan Tasini. Ryan, there's what the president actually said about Sweden, and then the way it was sort of interpreted by a lot of people who thought, well, is he talking about a terror attack in Sweden? It sounded like that maybe is what though he didn't actually say that. And then he walked it back essentially saying, well, it's based on something I guess he watched on Tucker Carlson.
Once you know what it's based on, when you actually watch him say it, it all sort of makes sense. Last night meant the president watching Fox News last night.
It wasn't something that actually happened in Sweden last night. It was a report last night about Sweden.
He learned about it. I mean, what is there to say about this? He doesn't always seem to be a very careful consumer of the news media. He took something from television and sort of intertwined it into his speech about terror attacks. I think the couple of problems. One is he hasn't adjusted from being a candidate where you can get away with saying those things. You're not privy to the most important national security secrets, to being president where you are, where in your daily briefing, one part of your job is to ask your briefers, give me the latest information about refugees in Europe and its relationship with crime and terrorism. I want to have the most up-to-date facts that I can go talk about. Instead, he's still citing things that he picks up from TV. And to me, I think that's something that previous presidents didn't do.
It is interesting, Kirsten, because as a candidate, Sweden probably wouldn't have reacted in the same way, but when you have the President of the United States sort of raising the specter of chaos in Sweden, it's kind of understandable the Swedes are, as much as Swedes get upset about stuff, they're going to get upset.
Well, I mean, I was listening to it live, and it definitely did not sound, it sounded like he was talking about something had actually happened. I think, like you said, if you go back and you think, okay, there was something, but the way he said it, it did sound like he was referencing something. And so I think that he does need to be more cognizant of that and how people are going to react. But look, even after it was made clear, he still kind of doubled down on the idea that there's something going on in Sweden Sweden in terms of some exploding problem with refugees, and in fact that doesn't really seem to add up with the facts that their crime rate has actually dropped in the last year, and the number of rapes have actually gone down. So even once he had a chance to reflect, he still was putting out bad information.
It's a bit of a success story. They're taking in people from a very different culture, very different socioeconomic class, and it's not actually causing the kind of problems that one might predict.
Which is not something new for Sweden. They actually did that during in the wake of the Bosnian War. They took in a lot of Muslims from Bosnia. Kayleigh, is this much ado about nothing?
It is. I mean, I was at the rally, and when I heard that statement, I asked the person next to me, oh, you know, what do you think he's talking about? And he said, oh, he's referring to something that he saw the previous night. And the person actually heard it exactly as Trump then clarified and tweeted it, it meaning that he saw the segment on Fox News and relayed this information. And I mean, I would dispute the notion that there isn't anything going on in Sweden at all. In fact, crime has gone up, you know, just 2 hours ago on Wolf Show, they put up a graphic that showed there has been a 7% increase in reported crimes.
Right, but I think our reporter, I mean, again, I might be wrong about this, but I think our correspondent who's actually there was saying that I think a lot of that has to do with cyber crimes or other forms of crime.
Sure, they have said that, but you talk to residents on the ground in these asylum centers, and they will tell you that there have been break-ins. They will also tell you that in the Gothenburg region, there have been 100 people, more than 100 people, 200 people, the Swedish police that have gone to Syria, 2 of which killed in Syria, came back, and then were taken in and have life sentences in Sweden. So to act as if everything is rosy with the refugee program, it's just not the case. And Donald Trump, I think, is right on this. And just to assume that he's wrong and have these sinister assumptions weaved into his comments, I don't think is accurate.
He's not right, and he shouldn't be taking information from Fox News. He should maybe be consulting with his intelligence briefers who might actually have the facts. Here's what Carl Bildt, a conservative prime minister of Sweden, not a left-winger, not from the Green Party, said in a tweet. I guess that's the way we conduct foreign policy now. Last year, there were approximately 50% more murders only in Orlando, Florida, where Trump spoke the other day, than in all of Sweden. Then he said bad. And actually, the information is not the case. Crime has gone down in Sweden. It certainly has. The influx of people, the influx of immigrants, the refugees have actually been absorbed quite well in Sweden. And if you look at actually the statistics, it's not true. There is no problem.
Well, I don't know about statistics, but I think 3 weeks ago there was an arrest made of 2 Afghan refugees who were accused of gang rape in Sweden. So
but
Donald, there was a video.
There's nothing, but it's not like there's a sweeping wave that Donald Trump.
That rape wouldn't have happened had those refugees
How many
not come
rapes
to Sweden.
how many rapes
it's like saying in New York City there was some crime or something happened, then you make a big policy.
But Jonathan, one is too many. One is too many.
Well, of course,
we in this country have a right to life, a right to safety, and one person who comes in this country as a guest, as a refugee, and commits an atrocity.
The allegation,
like
I think, in that news report that on Fox that the president saw was that the crime statistics actually are lying, that the Swedish government is keeping it suppressed because they don't want that message to get out. That, I think some Swedish police officers have now contradicted or said that they were edited inappropriately in the report.
But Omni Horowitz actually said, I'm not accusing the government of manipulating the stats. What I'm accusing them of is downplaying the fact that when one of these crimes happens, let's say a rape, they downplay the nationality or the fact that the person's a refugee.
Kayleigh, is your argument that we can never have refugees come into a country because one of them might...
My argument is that when someone comes through our immigration system and kills nearly 10 Americans, as happened in San Bernardino, legally through our immigration system, 10 is too many.
Okay, just so I understand, 2 people out of all of the refugees that come into the country, you think then what, the refugee program should be shut down?
Well, it's not
so they can never...
So you're creating a theoretical argument
rape has gone down.
Exist.
Rape has gone down.
Crime has gone up. Crime has gone up.
But rape has gone down.
Fine,
you just brought up rape.
Violent crime has gone down in Sweden, actually.
But what if we I don't have a command of the statistics enough in Sweden to be an expert on this, but let's just assume that the president is right, that Sweden is now a hellhole where Muslim refugees are raping and pillaging their way through the country. In America, in our country, this is a very well-established fact that immigrants in the United States have a lower rate of crime than non-immigrants. So I'm not sure what his point was in pointing out.
I will also say I've actually been to Sweden and actually reported and spent time with Afghan refugees, particularly young ones who there. I mean, they do make a huge job to assimilate. There's housing for them. They teach them Swedish. There's employment opportunities. So I mean, assimilation is a big push for the refugees who they do accept. I'm not saying everything's perfect.
But for sure, and most refugees are good, and we should say that. Most refugees are good people, the most vulnerable who want to be in this country. But when you have people, when you have our own intel community warning us that terrorists are trying to infiltrate the program, taking a pause does not make you racist or Islamophobic. It makes you sane. It makes you have common sense to say, let's take a pause when our intel community is warning us terrorists are trying to infiltrate.
This is classic